Welcome back, everyone. So we stopped here for approaches to interaction design. It's gonna be very brief. We will just finish it until um, fif- for 15 minutes. Let's see what we can accomplish. So Dan Safer, 2010, suggests four main approaches to interaction design, each of which is based on a distinct underlying philosophy: user-centered design, activity-centered design, systems design, and genius design. In user-centered design, the user knows best and is the guide to the designer. The designer's role is to translate the user's need and goals into a design solution. So the user-centered design, the user knows best, and it's only a guide to the designer. Activity-centered design focuses on the behavior surrounding particular tasks. Users still play a significant role, but it is their behavior rather than their goals and needs that is important. System design is a structured, rigorous, and holistic design approach that focuses on context and is particularly appropriate for companies' complex problems. Activity-centered design basically focus on what the customer did rather than what they say they want. So a lot of times customers are not aware with what they want. So if we ask them through a survey, it may not be the best option. System design is structured, rigorous, and holistic design approach that focuses on context and is particularly appropriate for complex problems. So think about this like designing a company or designing a web application that scale. You don't focus on one specific context. You make a system that allows it to adapt to focus on specific context or framework that it will apply at a given set of time. So it's like a complex adaptive system. In systems design, it is the system that is the people, computer, object, objects, devices, and so on at the center of attention, while the user's role is to set the goals of the system. So there is a lot of properties in the system, not just the people. So also the computer, the objects, the devices, and so on. Just like in a program, there's a lot of properties. It could be the methods, the objects, the function, etc. Finally, genius design is different from the other three approaches because it relies largely on the experience and creative flair of a designer. Jim Leftwich, an experienced interaction designer interviewed by Dan Saffer, prefers the term rapid expert design. In this approach, the user's role is to validate ideas generated by the designer, and users are not involved during the design process itself. Different designers will tend to gravitate toward using the approach that suits them best. So this design depends on the creativity or the inventiveness of the designer. So you're essentially focusing on new ideas rather than the system activities or other things. So in this approach, users' role is to validate ideas generated by the designer, and the users are not involved During the design process itself, different designers will tend to gravitate toward using the approach that suits them best. Although an individual designer may prefer a particular approach, it is important that the approach for any one design problem is chosen with that design problem in mind. So again, you're trying to solve a specific problem for a task. Different designer may choose different design at a specified time, but that doesn't mean that is the better or the design that you should choose. You should evaluate the pros and cons, should be conscious and aware why are you choosing this compared to other available options. So, and also keep the problem in mind. The main thing, because the reason you're doing this is you're trying to overcome certain problems or specific problems. You're trying to always make a framework. So, who to involve in the design process? There is a surprisingly wide collection of people who have a stake in the development of a successful product. For example, Maarten Hoven in 2019 ran workshops for stakeholders to explore requirements for an interactive sound caution to be used in a dementia care home. Although some of their stakeholders were also potential users of the caution, others were not. Their stakeholders include a care manager, professional caregiver, policymaker, and activity supervisor. So there's a collection of people that have a stake directly or indirectly with the system or with the framework you're trying to create to overcome a problem. So here, the example stakeholders were care manager, professional caregiver, policymaker, and activity supervisor. The group of stakeholders for a particular product will be larger than the group of users. So the stakeholder is larger than users. It will include customers who pay for it, users who interact directly with it, developers who design, build, and maintain it, executives responsible for any income directly with it, developers who design, build, and maintain it. Oh, sorry. Uh, Executives responsible for income derived from it, legislators who impose rules on the development and operation of it, and people whose lives may be affected by its introduction. Truck drivers want to make sure that their role is clear and that controls for the autonomous vehicle are straightforward. Family members of the truck drivers are also stakeholders, wanting their loved ones to be safe and satisfied with their jobs. Then there are the people who design and build the software and physical components. They make sure that the driving capability is installed correctly and that it continues to work effectively. So the stakeholder for autonomous driving car is the truck drivers and their family. Outside of these groups are the companies whose goods may be delivered using these trucks who want to provide an effective and efficient service that is competitive. They also don't want to lose customers and money because the trucks run late or end up in the wrong place. Other people who will be affected by the introduction of these trucks include vehicle manufacturers who don't have an autonomous capability, other road users and pedestrians, anyone interested in reducing carbon emission, as the autonomous trucks are designed to be fuel efficient and government departments that set regulations for drivers' hours and work time. So the customers where the product will be delivered are also affected. So the vehicle manufacturers as well are indirectly affected. Other road users and pedestrians, anyone interested in reducing carbon emissions, are also affected. Now there's a lot of indirect relationships. It may not be necessary or practical to actively involve all stakeholders in design, as participants, but generating a list of stakeholders helps to decide who to involve and what degree. Potential users and those affected by the product introduction are primary candidates for close involvement. Identifying this may seem like a straightforward activity, but it can be more complicated than you think. For example, Shazao, a 2016, found a more diverse set of users for smartphones than most manufacturers recognize. Based on an analysis of 1 month smartphone app usage, they discovered 382 distinct types of users, including screen checkers and young parents. So there was a surprise with the indirect relationship of smartphones. So there is actually a 382 distinct type of users, including screen checkers and young parents. So you may not know how your design indirectly affect other system. That's why it's a complicated adaptive system. Having identified and consulted the list of stakeholders, engaging the right groups may still prove to be difficult. Katie Seaborn in 2020 discussed a number of challenges in engaging the user community in a large urban food waste recycling project. Despite partnering with a range of stakeholders, having tried a number of tactics to involve residents, including word of mouth, residents association meetings, cold calling, and sticking up posters, the researchers choose the unusual approach of observing the contents of the existing bins to build up a picture of food waste habits. The importance of involving users. Chapter 1. So let's continue with this and degrees of user involvement in the next topic. So yeah, we still have a lot of like concepts to discuss with human to computer interaction for us to master this basic principle of computer science and for us to really say that we understand computer science. So we have discussed who to involve in the design process here and four approaches to interaction design. And again, thank you for watching and see you on the next video. Peace.